Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 7th of October 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, over the last, few days, I've been seeing a bunch of people kind of bring up crypto outside of, the crypto ecosystem, and these people are big names in the Web 2 space, in, the internet space, or, the tech space, and they're not saying nice things about crypto, that's for sure. They're calling it a scam, they're saying NFTs are like a scam and destroying the planet, all the stuff that we've pretty much heard before. And so that's what spurred this tweet today, where I basically said, it's 2021 and intelligent people are still calling crypto a scam. Meanwhile, those within the crypto ecosystem are changing their lives financially and making lifelong friends along the way. So let's ignore the haters. So it's so bizarre to me that these people say these sorts of things, because when I think of internet people who work with on the internet, work in tech, working Web 2 arena, I tend to think of them as kind of people who love technology, right? They want to see innovation happen, they want to see progress happen, and they want to kind of see the world get better through technology. And yet, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful technologies of our lifetimes, is being adopted right now. It's being built out and everything like that. And it can help a lot of people. They're just calling it a scam, and they're saying that it's kind of destroying the planet, all this kind of stuff, without even any nuance to it. It's just really bizarre to me, honestly. And I've spoken about this before, where I've basically said that I think maybe a reason why this happens is because the Web 2 space is traditionally pretty centralized, and these technologies aim to disrupt that. But I don't know if those people actually think that far ahead. I think they have the surface level knowledge or surface level understanding of crypto. They look at the ecosystem, and what do they see? Well, when you're not inside the ecosystem, what you see from the outside is actually not great. You see mainstream media headlines about scams all the time. You see headlines about the price going up or down. You don't see mainstream ever talking about anything fundamental when it comes to the tech. You rarely get a piece on DeFi. And DeFi is kind of old news to us in crypto now, right? It's been around for a while. We're all okay, what's the next thing? And then of course you'll see coverage of NFTs and things like that. But then the prevailing narrative outside of the crypto bubble is that NFTs are destroying the planet. It's all it's a giant scam, all these sorts of stuff going on. People can just right click save your work, so why would you pay money for it? And it's just, it's totally bizarre to me. But I think over time, these people will either come around or they'll just be forced to adopt these sorts of things, because the march of technology doesn't stop for people like this. I think back to how many people thought that the internet was going to be a passing fad, or that they'd never use it, or they thought it was a scam, or they thought it was only good for one thing. And then eventually it gets to a point where they're like, well, I have to use it now. If society has moved on without me, if I don't use it, then I can't, live in a modern society. And the clearest example of this is something like smartphones, where I think with smartphones, I'm not sure how many people actually thought it was a scam or anything like that, but smartphones, tablets, things like that, the late adopters, the people who came to adopt them last, were typically the elderly people, right? They're always pretty much last to adopting technologies, just as the way it is at the end of the day. And not all of them, but as a kind of cohort, it's generally how it plays out. So, I used to work at a telecommunications company. Before I worked in cybersecurity at a telecommunications company, I worked in the the retail storefront, and I actually worked as tech support. And I can't tell you the amount of people that were coming in that were elderly and had all these really, really basic problems with the technology. And you could see that they were super frustrated with it, where just even the basic things, they're oh, why does it have to be so hard? I hate this. I hate, I wish I could just do it this way. And they'd ramble on about some old way they used to do things. So, people just, a lot of people just generally don't like change. They think that any kind of change is scary, and anything that they don't understand must be a scam, or it just must be something bad. I think that's exactly what we're seeing play out within the crypto ecosystem. And to be honest, I don't blame some of these people sometimes if all they're exposed to is the bad bits of crypto. But at the same time, I do blame them for just taking that at face value and being okay, well, I haven't actually done, they exist in a space where they haven't actually done their own research on this sort of stuff. They're forming opinions based on essentially what the mainstream media is telling them to form opinions based on. And it just becomes very divisive from there. So I think over time, we'll get the skeptics over the line, line as we produce more and more value and we kind of drown out the scams. Because people bring this up all the time. Oh, crypto's full of scams. I'm like, what the bloody world is full of scams? What are you talking about? Everything is full of scams. Like, even the things that you think are honest are full of scams. Banks scam customers all the time. Big mega corporations scam customers all the time. They do it in a different way. They do it in kind of a way that's legal, right? Like, sometimes illegal, but they know they can get away with it. But essentially, anything that can be used for good can also be used for bad at the end of the day. And Ethereum, or crypto more generally, I mean, pretty much, can I use Ethereum as the perfect example here? It's a neutral platform, and it's permissionless. Anyone can build anything they want on there. No one can control that. No one can stop it. That is just a trade-off of having a neutral and permissionless and decentralized platform to build on. It's kind of like the kind of debate around weapons, like guns and swords and knives and things like that. People are like, oh, I'm not advocating for any kind of view here, but people are like, oh, okay, well, we need to ban this thing or ban that thing because it could be used for bad, or we need to hold kind of like the people that are selling these things responsible for the way people use them. And it's like, that's not fair. Like, any tool can be used for violence. I mean, you could use like a hammer to kill someone, right? Should we ban hammers, right? Should we regulate hammers? Should we basically say that anyone who sells a hammer or any hardware store they can be criminally charged for the way people use the tool? No. And we don't attribute kind of like the fact that people use these tools for bad to the people who sell them, for example, just as an example there. And it's kind of like related to Ethereum, where you shouldn't attribute what people use Ethereum for to Ethereum and to the rest of the ecosystem. You shouldn't generalize, because the fact of the matter is that Ethereum isn't going to discriminate on what gets built on there. It's not going to favor one thing over the other, and people are just going to do whatever they want to do on there. A lot of the scams are basically Ponzi's or money grabs or things where people kind of like ape into it because they want to make money and all that sorts of stuff. And that stuff that personally doesn't interest me at all. Like, I don't really cover that stuff. I don't chase that stuff. I don't play in that arena. But a lot of people want to do that. And to me, it's just basically gambling. But I mean, okay, well, if you think that within crypto, if you think that side is like the dark side of crypto and like shitty, well, then you should have the same opinion about casinos, and you should have the same opinion about anything that involves kind of like gambling at the end of the day. So I don't know. I just feel these people just really don't get it, and I think they will over time. I mean, one of the reasons why I do what I do with education is because I want to help more people get it. I want to help more people on board, but there's going to be probably a large cohort of people that will fight until the very end, until it's kind of like forced upon them. And the hilarious thing is, a lot of them are actually going to use crypto without even realizing it, because once DeFi infrastructure becomes ubiquitous across the world's financial system, people won't even know. They'll have no idea what they're using, and they won't even know it's related to crypto, which I find quite hilarious. And even on that note, I find it even funnier that when the layer 2s roll out on Ethereum, the Ethereum haters are not even going to realize they're using Ethereum, because they're just going to use the layer 2, and they're not going to realize it's built on Ethereum. So it's just funny how those kind of things work out. The surface level complaints, people just giving these throwaway kind of opinions about things, about specifically about crypto being a scam or whatever. It's inconsequential, but I did want to kind of like just give my thoughts there, because I thought it was important to give some context around this tweet, and also just how I'm thinking about this more generally. All right, another tweet that I came across today was one from Mariano Conti here, and basically it's a very simple tweet. He said, the Howey test 1946, which was kind of like instantiated in 1946, is closer to the invention of the stapler, 1877, than of Ethereum mainnet, which was 2015. Now, the reason why I think this is topical and funny at the same time is it's topical because of the fact that everyone's talking about the SEC and securities laws and all these sorts of stuff, and the Howey test is kind of like that thing that gets used to judge if something is a security or not. And if you don't know what that is, you can Google it. But on top of that, it's just hilarious to me that we're actually judging these things 80 years later or something like that, almost 80 years later, based on something that from 1946. The internet wasn't around then. Computers weren't around then. Like, maybe they were in their very limited form. Like, it was just like in research labs. It wasn't anything serious. But essentially, that was kind of like after World War II. The Industrial Revolution was just getting started within that as well. So we're using this thing that basically existed in a society that is just completely different to what it is today. And it is completely different on the technology side as well. So this is why I've kind of like said before that I think that we need an updated test for different assets within crypto, because crypto assets are very, very different to to kind of like just normal kind of equities or bonds or stocks or whatever you want to call them. Within crypto assets, like things can be classified as a security, but also be a commodity at the same time. Also be, I mean, I know there's things such as commodity securities and stuff like that, but I mean, then there's like lines between them and the lines get even more blurred. And it's like, okay, well, can an NFT be a security just because it pays out dividends or just pays out royalties or whatever? So we really need like an updated kind of like, I guess, legislation around this. And there is some movement, I think, in the US around this where Congress people are trying to basically get the law changed or at least new legislation put in so that we can stop relying on this Howey test. Because at the end of the day, the SEC doesn't legislate anything. They can only follow the guidance, or I guess like and they can only do enforcement actions based on the existing legislation, which is put together by Congress. And this is in the US context, of course. So if Congress doesn't do anything, then the SEC can keep doing this. And, you know, they can obviously keep going after different companies and different kind of like people and assets and stuff like that. They don't have to do what they're doing. I think, you know, I've discussed this before. I think Gary Gensler is being way too aggressive in his approach here, and I think that he's going after the wrong sets of actors. But you know, if this Howey test was updated to kind of like modern times, and if we had a proper crypto regulatory framework, then Gary Gensler wouldn't be able to do these sorts of stuff. He'd probably try something else, or the SEC generally, maybe not just him, would try something else. But at least it would be in kind of like an updated framework. Because, you know, if we're using a test that's closer to the invention of the stapler than the Ethereum mainnet, maybe it's kind of like time to rethink this here. So yeah, just something interesting that Mariano put out today, and I just kind of wanted to give some extra color to. All right, so I guess more merge updates. So a tweet here from Sajz Z, where basically they say how it started and how it's going. This is basically the merge milestone tracker. So each one of these M's is like milestone 1, milestone 2, milestone 3, milestone 4, milestone 5, of course. And then you can see like at the start, it was basically very very basic, where it basically checks off which clients have completed which milestone. And then you can see here, we're at milestone 3 so far, and milestone 4 and 5 obviously are coming soon, but each of these milestones is more advanced than the last. I don't know if I have the link handy now. Here it is. Good. I have the link handy. So essentially the way these kind of like milestones are tracked is that you can see here, you know, as I said, they get more complex as time goes on. Like milestone 3, which is the one that was just completed, was a one-to-one interop with transition. So one EL execution layer client, such as geth, and one consensus layer or CL team pair off for full interop testing, and they perform the following with at least 2 separate teams. Run one-to-one devnet with transitions, so the transition, I guess, from like, I guess doing the merge, essentially, going from proof of work to proof of stake, and record teams interrupt with alongside in milestone table, e.g. Nethermind, Besu. Okay, yeah, so basically what other clients kind of came along for the ride, essentially. Now, when things get really interesting is M4 and M5. So with M4, they're going to be doing a many-to-many interop between 2 or more ETH1 clients and 2 or more ETH2 clients, and run a many-to-many devnet with the transition. And then M5 is basically the holy grail here. This is the all-to-all persistent devnet. So every, or at least like the majority or the core ETH1 clients and the core ETH2 clients should all be able to kind of like do the merge together, stay in sync with each other and talk to each other, and do this on a kind of like persistent, long-lived devnet. Now, I've been talking about this on the Refuel a lot lately about the devnets, and then we'll have like long-lived testnets. This is coming faster than I thought, to be honest. Like the fact that they're already at this kind of point and everything seems to be going really smoothly, it's really awesome. I mean, I think we can probably have a testnet up and running maybe by the end of the month or next month. I mean, you know, next month's November, of course. But this is happening much faster than I thought it would. I think the teams are extremely energized right now. Everyone that I've kind of like spoken to, I guess that's part of that clique, especially Trent Van Epps, who's kind of like part of kind of like this event, this interoperability event that's going on right now with the core devs. He's very enthused about this, and I feel community members that are close to people here are also very enthused about this. So, you know, so am I. I mean, you saw the other day on the Refuel where I was just like super bullish and super excited about everything. It's because, you know, every once in a while, the Ethereum community, or at least the hardcore Ethereum community, the ones that kind of track this every single day, we get reinvigorated when we see something like this happening. And as I've said in the past, this has only happened, as I said before, this has only happened a few times in the last few years. It's a rare occasion. It is not something that happens frequently. And I think for me personally, it was definitely when the, I guess, like ETH2 teams got together to do the interoperability event to launch the beacon chain. That felt like a big turning point. And then it was, of course, the beacon chain going live. And kind of like reaching the minimum ETH required to launch the beacon chain too. So those kind of events. But then also, like, even outside of the ETH core dev stuff, I mean, 1559 was one of those events too, of course. But DeFi Summer, that was kind of like a turning point as well. That was like, okay, well, holy shit. We just built all this stuff during the bear market, and now it's actually going to get used. And now DeFi is everywhere, and everyone's talking about it. And then, you know, I personally, I didn't really feel it with NFTs, because NFTs feels like very far removed from what I guess a lot of us were paying attention to. I mean, I kind of called last year that I thought NFTs were going to be big, but even I missed how big that they would get and how many new people they would bring in. But until later, I mean, I didn't miss it completely. I'm pretty sure I wrote about it in late 2020 and talked about it on the refuel and stuff like that. But in terms of, I guess, like getting that same feeling, it just wasn't the same. I seem to get it around like the core the core stuff, like the core themes. And DeFi on the app layer is probably the only one that I've gotten it about. Otherwise, it's been like the layer 1 core stuff and obviously layer 2s as well. I mean, you've seen how excited I've been over layer 2s for the past couple months, especially the other day when Starkware announced that they're going live with their alpha version of Starknet on mainnet in November. Like, those sorts of things, they're just rare to happen because they take so much work to get to that point. Like, this is years and years of work to get to this point. The merge specifically obviously required the culminative work of like the beacon chain going live, which was the culmination of many, many years of work for Ethereum Proof of Stake and Ethereum 2.0, and obviously all the work that the ETH1 or execution layer teams have done over the years to get their clients to basically be where they are today, and then all the work that's going into the merge now and has been over the last few months at least, and until we actually get it done, there's just so much work that's going into this. So that's why it's kind of a rare occasion whenever people get like really excited about these sorts of things. So yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check this out and kind of keep along with the milestones here. It seems like everything's just gone very, very smoothly. So I'm expecting milestone 4 and 5 to go smoothly as well. But even if they don't, I mean, this is just dev nets. They can keep spinning them up, spinning them down. They can do whatever. They can reset. This is not mainnet. It's not going to be mainnet for a while, of course. This is not even a test net. This is just like a dev net where it's basically a sandbox. Do whatever you want. Make sure things are working. And then move on to the test net. So definitely going to be paying close attention to that. And just a couple more merge tweets here, which I'll link in the YouTube for you to see as well. Another one from Jacek, who's tracking, saying merge event day 4, Nimbus and Geth synced up with the Hacknet v2 here, a merge testnet running Geth and Lighthouse along with several other client combinations. Multi to multi is within reach. So he's basically saying that the M4 is within reach, right? Which is the multi-to-multi interop or many-to-many interop. And then another one from Marek here, who says Netmerge, Nethermind, and mergemock. The mergemock is an amazing tool to test the merge. So they've basically got a really cool tool to test all the stuff going on with the merge, which is awesome to see for developers there. I think that's it for the merge. Yes, I have another fresh tweet from Polynya to go over today, as usual, right? I swear I'm not doing this just so I have Polynya on every refuel. And some people said, oh, Polynya is my alt account. I wish I was this smart, guys. Like, trust me. But I'm learning so much from Polynya, so I'm just going to go over what they said today in this tweet. It was more about like the kind of like modular blockchain architecture, and they said monolithic blockchains are crippled by Moore's law and will only grow 64x over the coming decade. Modular architectures will grow by 1 millionx at the same time, only way the blockchain industry attains global scale, e.g. by 2030, 15 million TPS with ZK rollups on Ethereum alone. With ZK rollups, not Validium volitions, guys. ZK rollups, like fully Ethereum secured with data on chain. Like, you can probably get to 15 million TPS or something with a Validium or a Volition much sooner than that because you're basically putting the data off chain. But, I guess like by 2030, which is 9 years from today, less than 9 years or 8 years or whatever, you get to 15 million TPS. Now, the monolithic blockchains that Polynya talks about, I mean, the perfect example is Solana, right? If you can only grow by 64x, even if you track Moore's law, which I actually think Moore's law has like extreme diminishing returns and will continue to have diminishing returns. And for those who don't know what Moore's law is, it's basically this kind of like theory that every 2 years, the transistors on, I think like processing units or kind of like CPUs and GPUs and things like that doubles so that we have like better computing power and kind of like more efficient kind of like hardware. But that's been slowing down over the last few years. It was true for a while, don't get me wrong. I think it was true for, 20 years or something like that, some really long period of time. But it's been slowing down considerably because we're reaching the physical limits of how many of these things we can fit on a chip, like transistors that we can fit on a chip. So from that perspective, if it only grows 64x from here, that's nowhere near enough. Like that is definitely not enough scalability to scale to the world. And I would argue that something like 15 million TPS probably isn't either, but this is only 15 million TPS with ZK rollups, and this is also assuming that we don't come up with even better ways to scale through these technologies over the next 8 years, which we most certainly will. And I'm not even just talking about the software side of things, I'm talking about hardware as well, because if we can create better hardware and hardware that actually runs these things off-chain, runs these L2s in a much better and much more efficient way, in a much faster way, then we can potentially get to hundreds of millions of TPS from that. And I've said to you guys one day, I think we're going to get to billions of transactions per second, which is more than enough, I think, at that point, billions of transactions per second to kind of like satiate the demand that there will be. But this is just on layer 1 Ethereum with ZKRs. Like this is a full Ethereum security. This isn't even talking about validiums or volitions or any of the other kind of stuff that we come up with over the years. So it's kind of like not focusing on the monolithic blockchain architecture, focusing on the modular architecture is a way to future-proof yourself as well. So I think that's really important to consider there. And Polynya followed up this tweet by saying, I just use this example because the broader Ethereum ecosystem is the pioneer in this paradigm-shattering revolution, but it equally applies to all blockchain networks that have a focus on high security and decentralization. All monolithic blockchains must adapt immediately. And I've talked about this before, where I basically said there's only 2 chains right now that are secure enough and decentralized enough to do this kind of architecture. That is Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin's out because it can't verify the stacks and it can't host kind of call data or can't have call data on the chain. Ethereum is the only one right now that can do this. There are other chains that can do this, but Ethereum is the only one that is the most decentralized and secure by far. Like nothing even comes close to Ethereum. And on the decentralization note as well, I was going to put a tweet out about this, but I may as well just talk about it on the Refuel. People seem to think that decentralization is only on the technical side and can be boiled down to just, how many validators a network has, or how many kind of like miners does a network have, or stakers, or, how distributed is the stake in the mining power and all this sorts of stuff. It's 2 things. It's technical decentralization and it's social decentralization. The other blockchains, maybe they've got technical decentralization to an extent. Maybe some of them do. The social decentralization, they don't. Simple as that. Social decentralization is a million times harder to achieve than technical decentralization. And they actually go hand in hand with each other, to be honest, because without social decentralization, I actually don't believe you can have true technical decentralization. Because if you have a problem, right, and you need that social layer to kick in to fix the problem, well, if you don't have a social layer, then the problem just falls to a small group of people to fix it, which means that you don't have social decentralization. And, maybe some examples of what social decentralization is. I think a good token distribution goes into that. A broad set of community members go into that. A set of core developers that aren't just under one umbrella. They're not just under one foundation. They're actually spread out. A set of like app developers that are spread out. Layer 2 developers. Like all these kind of just like distributed and decentralizing the actual people is the most important aspect here. I just wanted to make a quick note on that. But essentially, we're just at the very start of this, as I've said before. Polynya has done a great job changing the narrative, I think, on Twitter. I'm seeing much more people talk about this now, and they've got a lot more followers now, which I'm very pleased with. There are almost 8,500 followers. Only, I think, 2 weeks ago, they're at less than 1,000, and I was like, this is stupid. Like, why have they only got less than 1,000 followers? Like, they should even have, should have as much followers as me. Like, I don't write stuff like this anymore on Twitter. Like, this is crazy. I'm glad to see that, but I'm really glad to see more people picking up on this, because as good as Polynya is, they're just one person, right? Like, we need the whole ecosystem to come together on this and to set the narrative and to basically get this out to people in the ecosystem so that they understand this. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is that people are going to just keep going down this path of a technology on the layer 1 side, and build redundant technology and keep doing it over and over again. And they actually might be honest builders who are just trying to build something different and build something scalable and good from, I guess with good intentions. Maybe they're not doing it just to money grab and they've just gone down the wrong path and their project ends up failing because of that. So I'd much rather see them come and like build a layer 2 on Ethereum, for example, and have a much better chance of success for their project than building another layer 1 out. So let's spread it far and wide, guys. Even if you've only got like a small voice on Twitter or on Reddit or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just put it out there. The more people see that see kind of these sorts of stuff, the better it is. And I think just like I'm going to keep talking about this. Obviously, you're going to hear me talk about this like for years to come, for sure. But still, good that it's more than just me and Polynya talking about it, right? At the end of the day. All right, so Fei Labs has introduced Fei V2. Now, disclaimer here, I'm an investor in Fei Labs here, but I wanted to point out kind of like Fei V2 because this is a huge upgrade to the Fei mechanism. Now, for those of you who don't know what Fei is, it's basically a decentralized kind of like algorithmic stablecoin that is pegged to a $1. Sorry, excuse me. That is pegged to $1 and that attempts to kind of like keep its peg through something called PCV, protocol controlled value. But you can read more about that. I mean, you can check out Fei if you want to. But essentially, what this upgrade, Fei V2, comes with is the main features are one-to-one redeemability. This creates a peg as tight as the best available oracles, such as Chainlink, and can scale to meet the demands of the rapidly expanding DeFi ecosystem, algorithmically rebalancing balancer V2 investment pools. Now, this is, I think, my favorite feature. And what this feature does is basically the PCV, or the protocol controlled value, which is basically a value in kind of like the DAO that is controlled by the tribe token or the tribe token holders and kind of through like a governance voting process. But essentially this value is like a bunch of money that can do whatever, you can do whatever you want with it. And its aim is to basically maintain the peg of Fei, essentially. So and it's called the PCV for short. So the PCV in this kind of like algorithmic rebalancing feature automatically adjusts towards stable assets as its reserve ratio lowers, and then the risk curve contracts determine the target asset allocation for the current collateralization and gradually shift pool weight. So you can see here that over time, the assets backing Fei will change, right? Depending on kind of like, I guess like the reserve ratio being lower or higher. So obviously if it's higher, you definitely want the less volatile assets in there, such as DAI or RAI or other kind of like decentralized stablecoins. And then if it's kind of like lower, you can have more volatile assets in there, such as ETH and staked ETH and DPI and Aave. So I think this is really cool because this means that that Fei can be backed by not just like one set of collateral, but can kind of like change over time, can adapt to kind of like the volatility, can adapt to things like maybe losing its peg and things like that, and restoring its peg really quickly. So I think that it's really cool, and it automatically does this via Balancer V2's investment pools, which I thought was cool. There's also a tribe token buyback and backstop feature. So basically, there's going to be continuous tribe buybacks while the protocol is healthy, and automatic tribe backstops to restore the reserve ratio. So sort of like how Maker does it when they kind of like print more MKR tokens to, I guess, cover any shortfalls. And this staged rollout of Fei V2 will begin in November. So if you want to learn more about this, of course, you can check out the blog post, but that was just, I guess, like a TLDR for you. All right, so for all the developers out there, there is now an Arbiscan for the Rinkeby testnet for Arbitrum. So basically, this is like arbiscam.io, except for the Rinkeby testnet. So if you're a dev and you're deploying to the Arbitrum Rinkeby testnet to kind of like test your apps out, you can now use this Etherscan-like block explorer to kind of like view what you're doing, keep tabs on what you're doing, and kind of like sift through all the activity and stuff like that. So yeah, really cool to see this. Just giving it a shout out for the developers. So Movr Network yesterday introduced their first product, FundMovr, which they're saying it's part of the Movr interoperability stack for a multi-chain world. So what FundMovr does, it enables seamless cross-chain bridging. So we have another bridge protocol enter the fray. Like there's so many of these things now, it's amazing. But essentially, I think that I'm not sure exactly what they support today. I think that they support a bunch of different chains out of the box right now. I didn't actually see it in the announcement post. But I mean, I'm sure if you go to the blog post, you'll be able to see what kind of chains they support out of the box. I think they support. Here we go. Oh, I mean, I think they support Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, Solana, Phantom, and Avalanche, and others. They say here, and you can kind of see how it works. Basically, they claim you can go from any chain to any chain, which is obviously a pretty big deal. And they kind of give examples here of how that works and everything like that. And I went over the other day kind of like how you can select different routes as well with the kind of like Movr app here. And you can kind of like select routes based on speed and gas price and stuff like that. It's kind of like if you wanted to kind of like have an express lane versus a normal lane. The express lane may cost you a bit more, but it's obviously going to take less time, whereas the normal lane is going to take more time but cost you less. So depending on kind of like your own preference there. But yeah, I think it's in beta right now. Obviously, I'm trying to see like which chains are actually supported right now, but I guess I'm not sure exactly. I haven't seen it here, but you can check out the blog post. Maybe they say it here, but they've already kind of like said that they're going to support all these other chains. I mean, you can assume that they're going to support every chain. I think there's actually a whitelist right now for beta access too, so maybe it's just very limited. But still, it's great to see this go live in a beta fashion and just more bridges for us to play with, right? So Argent is teasing their L2 wallet launch again. They said in a tweet here, do you think self-custody is too complex? The Argent L2 wallet at launch will have low gas, no seed phrase, one-tap DeFi with Aave, Yearn, Lido, and NDX, trading via Paraswap, fiat on-ramp, NFTs, and secured by Ethereum because they're using ZK Sync, and more dApps and L2s to come after. So they're only starting with ZK Sync. They're going to add more L2s, of course. Beta started expanding over the coming weeks. So yeah, it's finally here. They've been teasing this for quite a while. I'm hoping to get my own beta access sooner rather than later. I would love to try this out on my Argent wallet. Argent is one of those wallets that I think is going to onboard the most amount of people simply because of the fact they have a really nice interface. I think they've been hampered by the fact that they only supported Ethereum layer 1. But now they're kind of like doing layer 2 support as well, which obviously makes a lot of sense and is going to appeal to a lot of different people out there. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this looks like. And if you get a beta invite, let me know and let me know your thoughts around it. Join the Discord channel and let me know there. I'd love to kind of like hear your feedback on that. So Robert Miller from Flashbots has announced a new product called Flashbot Protect, which is a suite of tools that makes it easier to use Flashbots for front-running protection. The first two Protect products are an API for developers and an RPC endpoint for end users. So essentially what the RPC endpoint allows you to do, which is most relevant to us right now, is lets you kind of like change your RPC on MetaMask to access Flashbots and to do your transactions via Flashbots instead of via something like what MetaMask defaults to being Infura. So you can see here, you can just easily change your network like you do with any other kind of like network that you connect to, and you'll be going through the Flashbots kind of like RPC here and taking advantage of, I guess, like this stuff that people take advantage of to do MEV. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely go check it out. Flashbot is an amazing team. They're building a lot of great products. They're doing a lot of stuff around MEV, which funny enough, like I'm just thinking about it now. A few months ago, MEV was like the hottest topic ever, right? Everyone was talking about it. Now it's less so. I think it's just because it's kind of like become a bit of a boring topic for people. But I think maybe over the next 2 to 3 months, there's going to be more kind of like talk about it as we get to the merge and as more people talk about MEV in like a proof of stake paradigm for Ethereum. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out there. And speaking of a proof of stake paradigm, Lido announced that they've got a staking rewards dashboard now. So if you go to stake.lido.fi/rewards, you can now track your staking deposits, daily rewards, average staking APR, and much more at the click of a button. So if you are staking with Lido, you do hold ST.ETH, well then you have this really nice dashboard to check everything and check how your kind of like rewards are going, what your average APR is, and kind of like all that stuff there. So yeah, I mean I love dashboards just generally. The things that just make it super easy for people to visualize what's going on, whether that be staking, whether that be kind of like tracking their DeFi stuff. I mean, this is why I love Zapper so much, right? At the end of the day, it's just, I love these simple tools that people can use to get like a bird's eye view of what's going on with their finances, which I think is obviously very important. So yeah, go check this out if you haven't yet. But I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.